Did you know that some of America's favorite holidays have surprising, even controversial origins? From patriotic cookouts to harvest feasts and honoring the labor movement, our national holidays are deeply ingrained in American culture. But have you ever wondered about the untold stories behind them? Today, we're diving into the secret history of U.S. national holidays, the hidden facts, forgotten figures, and historical twists that shaped them. So grab a cup of cider, settle in, and get ready to discover the surprising stories behind some of America's most cherished traditions. Let's start with Independence Day, a day that celebrates the birth of the United States. But did you know that the original intent of July was not what we celebrate today? And many of the founding fathers didn't even sign the Declaration on July 4th. You heard that, right? Well, we all know about the iconic image of John Hancock's signature on the document. Most of the signatories put their names on it weeks later after the official date. So why do we celebrate it on July? Well, it's because of a quirk of fate and a lack of organization. See, the Continental Congress didn't even plan to declare independence on July. It was just 2 days earlier that the committee tasked with drafting a declaration had finished their work. And when they presented it to the full Congress, no one was prepared to vote on it. But then a hot debate ensued, ending in a vote to approve the declaration. But because there were no official proceedings recorded on July, it took almost a century for people to start celebrating it as the nation's birthday. In fact, it wasn't until 1870 that Congress officially declared July 4th as the legal public holiday. Now let's feast our way through history with Thanksgiving. This beloved holiday is all about giving thanks for the blessings of the past year. But did you know that the idea of the first Thanksgiving is a bit of a myth? Well, the popular narrative goes that in October 1621, the Pilgrims shared a 3-day feast with the Wampanoag people after their first harvest in Plymouth. But historians now believe that this event was actually an ordinary harvest celebration that was blown out of proportion. What we do know is that Thanksgiving celebrations were common during the early colonial period, with both religious and secular communities giving thanks for their bounty. However, the Thanksgiving story really took off in the 19th century. During this time, Americans began to romanticize the past and create a national identity separate from Britain. So they latched onto the idea of the Pilgrims as the founders of the nation. And who better to share a meal with than the indigenous people who had lived on the land for centuries? Additionally, Abraham Lincoln also saw the holiday as a way to unite the country during the Civil War, so he declared the last Thursday in November as a National Thanksgiving Day in 1863. However, despite these national celebrations, many Native Americans have rejected the Thanksgiving narrative as it often erases their history and culture. For many tribes, Thanksgiving is a reminder of the displacement and oppression they faced at the hands of European settlers. Instead, some tribes use the holiday as a time to educate others about their culture and resilience. Alright, we've covered two major holidays, but we're just getting started. Up next, we'll talk about Labor Day and how it became a day of rest and remembrance. But before we dive into the world of labor unions and parades, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode of our award-winning series. We bring history to life with all new episodes every week, plus bonus segments you won't find anywhere else. Now back to Labor Day. The first Monday of September marks a day of rest and the unofficial end of summer. But did you know that its origins lie in the labor union protests? The late 19th century was a time of major industrial growth in the U.S., but it was also a time of terrible working conditions, long hours, and low pay. So workers began to organize and demand change. One of the most significant events in this struggle was the Pullman Strike of 1894. This nationwide railroad strike began in Illinois and quickly spread across the country. The workers were protesting against the Pullman Company's decision to cut wages, and they shut down several major railroads. The strike was eventually put down by federal troops, and it ended up being one of the largest labor protests in American history. But it also led to the creation of Labor Day. Fearing further unrest, lawmakers decided to create a holiday to appease the workers. And so in 1894, Oregon became the first state to recognize Labor Day as a legal holiday. Then in 1941, it became a federal holiday. However, it was never meant to be a day of protest. Instead, it became a day to celebrate American workers and the contributions they make to society. Finally, let's discuss Martin Luther King Jr. Day, a federal holiday in the United States observed on the third Monday of January. It honors the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., a prominent leader of the civil rights movement. But did you know that it took years of resistance and advocacy before it became a federal holiday? The push for a national holiday began shortly after King's assassination in 1968, but it was met with opposition from various groups, including some members of Congress who opposed the civil rights movement. However, the movement continued to gain momentum, and in 1986, the federal holiday was finally established. It was a major victory for the civil rights movement and a recognition of King's contributions to the fight for equality, but it also reflects a larger narrative of America's racial progress. Over time, the narrative of the civil rights movement has become a dominant part of American history. And while there's still much work to be done, the holiday serves as a reminder of the progress that has been made. From Independence Day to Thanksgiving, Labor Day to Martin Luther King Jr. Day, America's national holidays are a rich tapestry of history, culture, and tradition. As we wrap up our journey through the secret history of U.S. national holidays, let's take a moment to appreciate the stories that have shaped these celebrations. Behind every celebration is a story, often more complex than we're told, reminding us that even the most cherished traditions have roots that run deep in American history. So, which holiday history surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more cultural deep dives. Thank you for joining us on this enlightening journey through time. Stay curious and keep exploring the fascinating world around you. Until next time, happy holidays!